Hello and welcome to Monday Mindfulness. Last week we talked about just simply being and letting the body actually living and going through the living process being the focus of our meditation. And because of my own practice this week, as well as what I'd like to share in contrast to just being, I'd like to focus on some of the things that we value add, some of our perceptions that add onto our human experience of just living and being. So, have you ever noticed that your mind wants to interpret things as being right or wrong? Have you noticed this perspective of things being more or less important than each other? It's really interesting to watch these things, and also it's a fundamental aspect of mindfulness to work with acceptance as we're practicing. And it's very interesting if we start to turn these things out and start to explore the things in our lives that we feel are right and wrong, or things that we feel are more important or less important than each other. And as we walk this practice of looking at the different things that trigger us and the different things that we may be really excited about and we build a lot of importance behind, it's interesting to just notice the perception and the interpretation process. So I found in the last week, noticing my perceptions and my interpretations, man, this mind wants to make a lot of things about me. It wants to make things about how this can serve me, how this can make me seem important, how this can, raise my value. And I feel like there's a lot of things that can influence this, and a lot of areas where we subtly, sneakily put this in. We add this value to situations and actually can cause ourselves quite a bit of discomfort. And it's interesting, I've found, to go through this process of exploring these things and noticing what happens when I let go of something that I've resisted. What happens when I just no longer need to hold that resistance, and I no longer need to perceive this as being something that I need to fight against and I need to invest energy in fighting against. I'm not saying that we shouldn't take action at times. I'm just saying that it's very interesting to explore the things that we're resisting, and to do that really honestly and look at, okay, what are the underlying belief systems under this? And do I really have all my facts? Like, do I have evidence to support this belief? And is it as important as I thought it was? And just having that perspective, being able to take a step back and ask ourselves these honest questions can be really, really powerful. And I'm not saying that your experience is going to be anything in particular. What I'm saying is, if there is something that's bothering you, that just to have a look at what are the underlying belief systems, what are the facts behind this, and how important is it to me really? They're three great questions to ask. And if I'm building anxiety around achieving something or creating something, ask the same questions, and you may find other questions that are more valuable for you, which is what are the belief systems, what are the structures that I've got sitting on top of this? And there may be layers of these things that you've built up, some that you've learnt from your grandparents and parents, and these things tend to add up. And then also, what are the facts that support it, and how important is this to me really? Because sometimes, and this is an interesting thing, I'm not sure, I couldn't tell you that anything is more or less important or more or less worthy of love than anything else. So if you have an experience that's challenging you, then there's nothing to prevent you, if you have an experience that's really challenging you, I couldn't tell you that there's a better experience out there, or if you have an experience that you're really attached to, I couldn't tell you that it's going to be any better or worse than right now. And I love service work. I'm really passionate about service work. But when I really honestly explore my experience and what's happening for me, I honestly could not say that the world will be a better place for my service work. It may just be that I might feel better for a short period because my ego thinks that I've done something that's of value. But realistically, all I can do is my best effort, and no matter how it turns out, it is what it is. So I know things can be really challenging at times and things can be really exciting at times. They are equally divine parts of the human experience from my perspective. And I'm only saying that because I don't have evidence to support any other argument. So all I know is that things are what they are. The adding of value and importance and levels to me is something that I don't have concrete evidence to support, and that's just from my own mindfulness practice, and I'm totally open to that changing if I do find evidence. But I know things feel difficult. I generally gravitate away from. I'm generally motivated by pleasure, and there's been times where I've been addicted to pain and been motivated by that, and that's been my pleasure, actually going through pain. And each person's different, each phase of life is different. And I'm not saying at all that any experience, anything is a definitive level amongst levels of divineness. All I'm saying is that it's interesting to have that perspective and to know that, okay, I feel this is really important, and that's because ... Like that's your own practice. Why is this really important? What does it feel like? What are my underlying motivations for this? And it's really interesting for me when I dive into this stuff, the kind of honest realizations that come through it. And at the same time, there's lots of backsides and mirror sides of this, because I'm saying this that I find exploring this stuff, I can get real honesty about myself. But at the same time, I don't have to do anything, and neither do you. But I feel it's valuable in my practice to hold on to that same acceptance that I bring to the other parts of the practice. So when I bring awareness to an issue that I've been having where I'm trying to make things about me and my ego and trying to make the planet think that this body is important, and subtly sneaking that into actions that are motivated by this urge, that I'm totally accepting and loving of that as well, and understanding that that's a perfect part of the experience as well. And I've found that for me, I tend to melt into this liberating, like a liberated harmony and peace in that. It's not that I'm beating myself up with it. It's about just accepting that, man, this is a process that this mind-body machine is very good at it. And it's something that from the realization I can make peace with, and I can just surrender to living this moment as it is, whether I'm loving it or not. and just allowing now to be now, and yeah, I could go on with a whole bunch of memes and bits and pieces about accepting and loving and embracing and surrendering to the moment, but it's an experience. And for me, I found it beneficial to be gentle with myself in the process. It's a habit, just like anything else, and with practice it becomes easier and easier. So one thing that we can do as a practice from this is asking those 3 questions of anything that we're challenged by or anything that we're drawn to and motivated by. And I find that I can sit with that and just notice, okay, what's happening in my body today? So I can do this at the end of a day and just say, okay, is there something that's been challenging me today? So what's up with that? What are the beliefs under it? What are my facts there? What am I holding on to as far as importance and levels and stuff there? So how important is it for me? And getting really clear with that stuff. And I can do the same with the stuff that I'm really positive and excited about. And I find that intellectually, I might think that this process would make things kind of sedate or numb or indifferent. But in my experience, it hasn't been that way. It's actually made it so that I can really embrace the experience and experience it fully and really feel and ride this roller coaster with a childlike passion, rather than being either scared of either the pain or scared of not having the pleasure. I can actually be way more effective and in the pocket of presence when I'm liberated from my fear and attachment and all of the things that I'm adding on to the moment. So I can just be really in that sweet spot, in the pocket of the moment, and just really connect when I am in this place of having understanding. Well, I just in saying understanding, I mean having surrender, really, because I'm not pretending to fully understand. I don't know that the mind's designed for that, but what I do have is a peaceful surrender where I'm actually at peace with all of these things and seeing them roll through the body and embracing them and allowing them to be what they are, and maybe having a little more perspective on them. So we can do this as a seated practice. And another thing that I really love to do is taking it to the streets. So just once I'm comfortable with the seated practice, going out to a mall, going out to a park or a beach and walking and noticing how my body reacts to things, how my body interprets people, how my body interprets what they're doing, how my body interprets and my mind interprets advertising signs, like all of these stimulus, all of these experiences, all of these connections. It's very interesting to see what we're trying to add there. And I found there's a big difference that I can feel and experience. Not that this makes any experience or person better or worse than anyone else, but I've found that there's a big difference between the feel of making things about me or making things about my group, which is by extension me, or by group it could even be people that are pseudo-spiritual or meditative, and making things about just a surrendered experience of the moment, and in a without trying, in a graceful way, actually being able to live in complete service of the moment. I find that that's the paradigm that I'm working with there. And there's a whole bunch of gray area in between, but I've noticed in taking this to the streets and noticing what I'm adding to these moments is sometimes I'm adding all about me into the moment, and sometimes I'm in this blissful, graceful surrender where I'm just allowing all of these things to be loved and brought in without needing to add too much story to it. So have a go with them techniques if you find you resonate with them, and I'd love to hear about how they go. And for me, the one word that would sum up this spending more and more time and building the habit of adding less perspective and filtering onto things is grace. I feel it's very graceful, and I find that process of just being able to see things come up and go, oh yeah, I'm trying to make that about me. Let's just take a breath and see what's really here. I find that process is very graceful. So in one word to describe it, grace. So I hope you have a fantastic, wonderful week. Not that that's any better than anything else, but that's what I'm wishing your way. I really adore you guys, and I'd love to hear any comments, any feedback. I'm not attached to that, of course, as this whole perspective adding thing. So yeah, I feel like I could talk for hours about this because it's such an interesting dynamic of the human experience, and each sitting time, each practice is so unique, and there's so many sides and corners and nuances and textures to this process and this particular area of focus on our value adding to the moment, on our perceptions, that I find it really interesting, and I love the practice. So blessings and peace. Till next week. Ciao.